What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the next edition of Market Monday, where we take a specific area in the market and completely break down the numbers. We talk past sales, pricing dynamics, discount percentage, months of inventory, and even take a look at some of the most interesting properties that sold at that time. Real quick, for those that don't know me, I'm Adam Hancock. I have a real estate group in Southwest Florida, and I put out daily videos on Florida relocation and investment assistance, and for access to over 90 videos in the last 11 months and counting. Okay, so today's topic winner by vote was the beautiful barrier island of Siesta Key, Florida. I'm going to start out by giving a little bit of background about the key. Next, we're going to talk about numbers, specifically 2019 versus 2020 calendar year sales performance. And if you stick around to the end, number 3, I'm going to break down about 5 different listings that sold across various different price brackets in 2020. Let's dive in. Okay, Siesta Key, Florida. Let's start off with a little bit of background and location for context's sake. Siesta Key, Florida is 100% one of the most popular terms that anyone is going to hear around the Sarasota County, Gulf Coast area and greater. And there's a few reasons why, but location is definitely one of the main ones. So locationally, you have basically Sarasota here that runs, you have Bradenton, Lakewood Ranch up here. Sarasota kind of runs here, around here, stops before Osprey, Nokomis, and Venice. And the cool part about Siesta Key is it sits right here. It's an 8-mile end-to-end barrier island that sits below Longboat Key, above Venice, and it kind of bumps against the mainland part of Sarasota, which gives you access to really everything. So I constantly preach value proposition Sarasota County, especially if you're going to be on the beaches, which put you on a barrier island, put you a little further off the mainland. You want to move to Sarasota to be close to the Sarasota stuff. So whether you want to be fully on beach lifestyle, most people want access to downtown. Most people don't want to completely lose access to South Sarasota and Venice. So Siesta Key actually gives you quite an advantage where, like a Longboat Key, if you get in the wrong area, you're sitting up here and you can kind of see it's a stretch to actually live multiple lifestyles, right? So Siesta Key is, like I said, it's an 8-mile barrier island end to end. With 2 main bridges to get on and off. The first one being the northern bridge off of US 41 Tamiami Trail, which gives you easy access to downtown Sarasota, Southgate, Central Mainland. The south one is off of Stickney Point, which spits you out right around Vamo Gulfgate area, and which is quite a cool area. A lot of a different part of Sarasota, top-ranked schools, very attractive area, and also more importantly, you don't lose crazy access to Osprey, Nokomis, and Venice Island, which sit around here. So I think locationally, probably one of the absolute best spots you could be, especially for a beach in the area. And basically the way to look at the key, we're going to break down in 3 main areas. So you have the north side of the beach, including Siesta Key, the main beach. You have Crescent Beach in the middle near the Stickney Point Bridge. And down at the bottom, you have Turtle Beach to the south. So I'm going to break down those in a minute, but that's basically the way to look at the beach as a whole. So the most notable beach is Siesta Key by far and away, and this is the main beach here, which is quite northern on the island. And Siesta Key is basically going to give you kind of the feel of what most people think when they come to this. So huge, large, renovated parking lot, very long trip from parking lot to water with a bunch of stuff in between. So there's brand new playgrounds, there's concessions. It's what you would think when you think of Florida. And it's really the main beach. It's the main tourist beach. It's the main beach for everything. And what this is going to give you, there's a lot of definitely recreation, volleyball, like I said, the concession. Again, this is a longer trek to the water. So you basically have these main lifeguard stands that sit in the middle. And you have this huge strip of sand to the water versus the narrow ones with a lot of little trips to the water that go long ways. This is just a big plot of land that goes straight down. So you have stacks of people that will go in rows to get towards the water. And then the lifeguard stands kind of run the main part where kind of people meet up at. And then the northern side also have one of the main villages, which is Siesta Key Village District, which I'll talk about in a minute. But that's all sitting on the north side here. There's a bunch of residential housing up here and then the exit off here. So this is one of the most attractive, not only because it's the main beach, but it's also shoots you off the northern side of the beach, which is access to downtown. In the middle, you have Crescent Beach. So Crescent's kind of where it's the most private public beach you can get. It's kind of a lot of people don't even know they're driving past it. And this is going to be where, if you've ever heard of Point of Rocks, it's at the southern tip of Crescent, which is kind of this rocky area with good scuba, snorkeling, that kind of thing. It's a really cool area. So a lot of people kind of go to Crescent to get down there. But Crescent's kind of in the middle here, and that's going to be close to the second village, which is going to be the other shopping village, which is called South Village. And the exit to Stickney Point there. And then all the way at the bottom, you have Turtle. So Turtle's kind of like wilderness kind of beach feeling. It feels like kind of like some of the beaches in Venice do. And this is going to be really shelly. It's got kind of this drop off of sand to water. A lot of people fish out there. And it's just more of this like kind of sporty beach. There's a playground there. There's some pretty easy access to fishing there as well. But I guess Turtle and Siesta Key would be kind of polar opposites from a beach style standpoint. So Sarasota's got kind of like run through your hand, sugary white sand. Turtle's rocky, sandy, way more like nature, Casperson, Venice Beach feeling. But it'd be a way to like, if you have kids and you don't want to be in the hustle bustle of like a packed out Siesta Key, it'd be kind of like an alternative beach for that. You know, that's kind of how we've used it in the past, but definitely feels a lot different than Siesta. So with that being said, that's kind of how to look at the island. That would be kind of your trek here. There's residential and condo and all of that kind of housing existing all up and down. And kind of when you get to the tips, it's going to be way more like pockets of neighborhoods. So like the tip of Turtle, where there's no like easy exit off there, a lot of residential housing. A lot in the middle of Crescent, because that's like dab stab in the middle. You're going to have a ton of condos, a ton of rentals, all up and down there. And then north of the main Siesta Key beach is where you're going to have a bunch of residential housing again. So that's kind of how to look at Siesta in a nutshell. And again, location of the barrier island itself is the main attraction. And then just real quick, the two villages, you have Siesta Key Village, which is that main strip that I think most people are aware of. And you have, actually I think I have some pictures here. So I won't get too much into this because this is more of a analytical video. But just for real quick here, so like that beach sits in like walking distance to Siesta Village, which has a bunch of restaurants, a bunch of shops, boutiques. There's businesses down there, but it's main like there's a good breakfast place, good dinner place, the daiquiri deck, you know, kind of your prototypical tourist type of beach. And then the South Village, which is going to be, you know, a lot of people call it Crescent Village. It's going to have a myriad of shops and restaurants too, just not as like kind of in one little dense area like Siesta Village, but nonetheless, like if you're anywhere from here to here, you got access to a lot of different stuff. So kind of mass appeal there. So I'm going to end there with contact. We're going to hop over to a spreadsheet and talk a little numbers as section 2 of this video, and we'll see you there. Okay, our first statistic for this video, we're going to talk about the number of closed sales in quantity in Siesta Key from 2019, all 4 quarters, to the calendar year 2020. So we're going to contrast the two. The gray one is 2020, our most recent year. The purplish is 2019. And then we're hopping price bucket space here. So this is all in millions. So this is 300K. This is 2 million plus. So we're seeing kind of, this is a commonality across almost everywhere I've looked so far, is gross increases in quantity of sales year over year, no matter where you are. And Siesta Key is no different. A couple little interesting tidbits about the Key versus the mainland we'll get to here in a second. But you're seeing a minimum, the lowest increase in a price bucket. Now these are shopping buckets, what people generally would shop in. The lowest increase has been 12%, so significant, and as high as about 60% based on just pure quantity differences. So you see this 300 to 400K here at beach would be mainly condo shopping. You have a 21% jump here. 400 to 600, you have 12%. You have a 13% in 600 to 800. You have the kind of oddball here, 800 to 1 million, you have 31%. And then really interesting here, so this is becoming, you know, crazy, the jumps I'm seeing in 1 million to 2 million at 34%, and then 2 million plus kind of skewed because of the low numbers, but the beach alone is very significant for that type of jump, and we have a really large sale within that 2 million plus bucket. So what's really interesting about the beaches is the 1 million to 2 million, and then sometimes the 2 million to plus, but especially the 1 million to 2 million, I'm seeing just crazy urgency and demand related to that, because the value in my mind, now it's all perspective, right? But the value of people sitting in the Northeast, like Connecticut, New York, and certain parts of the Northeast, Canada, Europe, and California, the 1 million to 2 million, where that money translates, especially in those markets versus this one, beach property here is so affordable compared to the lifestyles that people are living within that bucket elsewhere, that I feel like that is becoming really urgent on people's mind, thinking that you might not be able to recreate that in a few years. So money's pouring in it here. A lot of these are cash purchases because of just the scarcity. And that's becoming really interesting. So the lifestyle you can achieve at 2 million under beach to bay here is almost like unparalleled in the country. And the Miamis and the Bocas and the Naples of the world, it's getting even harder to achieve. But that barrier island lifestyle with access to the rest of the Sarasota stuff that people want to be close to is almost I'm not sure how much longer you're going to be able to recreate that under 2 million. So it's really interesting, and you kind of see that in the numbers here. So I wanted to give a little bit more context to this video, which I didn't do in the prior ones, is I wanted to kind of break down like what kind of housing is moving amongst these. So we have about 619 total sales within this bucket, roughly. And what you're getting there is, so because like if you think about under 600K on the beach, a lot of people are like, well, probably surprised by those numbers. So obviously that stuff's getting way more, that's not single family housing. This is almost majority of condominium. It could be high fee or low fee. A lot of these are for rental because Siesta Key allows like weekly rentals in a lot of cases. But nonetheless, you're getting, of the 619, you're getting 361 of those 619 sales are all condominium. And then what it's doing is basically the other side of things, and you got some hodgepodge, 15 of them are villas and that kind of thing that add to the number. But then 232 of the 619 are then single family, and you're going to see a lot of the real expensive stuff in that range. Even like you're probably like 800 plus is going to be many more single family. So you got almost the entire bucket made of the condominium and the single family, but you see that by far the majority is the condominium living. So that kind of gives you context of what actually moves. Of those 361 condominiums, the average price point is $652,000. So it's interesting because you see how much moves in these buckets, right? And more than half are condominiums, but you see the pure number that is here. Well, that price point being $652 on average isn't even in the first two buckets, right? So you have some real big outliers that skew price just because it's the beach and the divide is very large, right? And you got a significant volume. Like not a lot of the mainland has the volume that like you have similar volume at 1 to 2 million as at 600 under. So kind of interesting there. Of the single families, now you're getting kind of to what I alluded to was the average price point of a single family in 2000. Now this is 2020, right? In 2020 was 1.5 million. So you got some outliers pushing that too, but the average single family is going to be way closer to, not just the average, but the median is going to be way closer to the almost million mark or the high 800s at least. So that's going to be kind of what you're working with. If you're shopping the beach, you're talking under 600, like it's probably only condominium. It's probably only condominium of a certain respect. And a lot of those will have the $500 to $1,000 monthly fees on those or whatever, so you're kind of getting that. So, but a lot of that is a ROI rental game. And then if you're looking for a single family, now there's some interesting opportunities. So I've been shopping a lot of these like just over $1 million, just under $1 million, kind of like if I rented it, if I stayed for a portion of the year. There's some interesting opportunities kind of in, get back to the map here for 1 second, in this area above the key. So some interesting opportunities there. But nonetheless, that's kind of your breakdown of closed sales in Siesta Key up by a volume. I'm going to hop to some of the monetary effects of the square footage moving, and we'll move there. Okay, the second bucket I like to look at is the sales price per square foot to give a better perspective of the monetary movement amongst the different classes. Same years, same price buckets. So we got a little bit more variability here than some of the mainland property. So what this is, again, 2020 versus 2019, and this is price per square foot over those buckets, which is the cap, year over year. So what you have here is you have, now everyone's been kind of asking me if things are grossly overpriced. And what I'm seeing is, yeah, you got some slight couple percentage points up just because of pure supply and demand. But what I'm seeing generally is I don't think people are grossly overpaying in most respects. I'm seeing things go a lot faster. It's a lot harder to win properties. It's a lot more competitive. You can't compete on terms as much. But I am seeing that the market is self-correcting and not generally just overpaying to overpay. It's either selling fast or it's not selling at all until it's dropped in a respectable amount. And the numbers are really showing that. So what you're seeing is you're seeing the 300 to 400, unbelievable competitive price range. You're seeing 372 last year, 389 this year, so we got some increase there. You're seeing 400 to 600, almost flat, but slightly down. People paid a little bit less per square foot in this bucket than they did last year. Interesting. And then you're seeing, again, 600 to 800, you're seeing getting way more competitive. This is, you're seeing a large jump here in comparison, right? So that one's like probably that little bit of a nicer condo. A lot are going to be in here, or a really cheap like tear down house with some ROI opportunity. So investors being all in this bucket. And then you're seeing 800 to 1 million, which look at that drop down. So you're seeing people having a significant price per square foot decrease year over year. You're seeing 1 to 2 million again. That's that really like one that's just popping off everywhere. You're seeing a little increase there. And then 2 million plus, you got your biggest bucket for potential outliers, right? Because the price per square foot could drop significantly based on these large price points, and some people go out pretty crazy in price, and just depending on their personal situation. So you're seeing this one kind of a little bit skewed, and also not as many numbers that play into this bucket. So interesting there. So again, it's pounding home that same theme of like, I feel like the market's pretty educated. I especially feel like the market's educated on properties like these. The beach market isn't a random market. It's a lot of people going there very intentionally, and a lot of people have been shopping those markets for years. So I feel like it's educated, and I feel like it shows that in the numbers. Now, I want to talk about, again, another thing I added to this video. I want to talk a little bit about how these purchases are being made to get some context there. So the beach definitely is a little bit more in this respect, but Sarasota County feels this way generally. So again, 619 total purchases. That's our number. That's 2020 sales. Lost my screen here. Back. So of the 619, 307 of the 619 were purchased full cash, which is very interesting. And most of the most expensive properties on the island go in cash. It's hard to compete a lot of times versus mortgages because the cash outweighs. 281 of those 619, again, so we got that similar divide, is conventional mortgage. And then you have a myriad of other, which is a lot of like private lending or something in between the two. But money is extremely cheap. So a lot of people are using mortgages that don't need to use mortgages just to keep liquidity. So it's a lot more compelling in this market, I think. Money is just unbelievably cheap. It's kind of like depending on what else you're using for your money, it makes it compelling. But cash is king from a competition of competing with other offers. And a lot of folks that are storing money here, it's for specific reasons. Okay, so I also wanted to talk a little bit about tax. So average of those cash purchases, 307 bought in cash. Average annual taxes of those properties was $9,586 annually. Of the conventional, it was $7,586. So it gives you just a little idea of what people are paying in tax. And you're going to have obviously the mansion's going to be paying $20,000 a year, $28,000 a year. That's going to skew some of these numbers. But generally the beach taxes, they're going to have a little bit more drip of expense of cost of living there for what you get. And then finally, price per square foot. So on the cash purchases, the price per square foot was just $2,100 on average. So it's interesting, right? So you think all these cash purchases, these massive houses, you're gonna have a lot of condominiums, and you're gonna have the price per square foot's higher. So just $2,100. And then of the conventional purchases, you had about 1,900 square feet on average. So what that puts you, the majority of the 619, the average total square footage of a place on Siesta Key Beach in 2020 at about 1,900. So let's hop to number 3 and talk about discount percentage of what people saved in 2020 versus 2019. Okay, our third metric for this video, this is discount percentage on sales prices in Siesta Key year over year. So this one's interesting because the last metric was price per square foot. So this was the difference in price per square foot per year, but not necessarily indicative of what people tried to sell at versus what they got. That's just net price per square foot. This one will tell you that a seller tried to sell for $400,000 in 2019 and they got $400,000 in 2019, but in 2020 they got $410,000. So it's what discount buyers were able to achieve year over year. So it's always interesting to me as far as like how the market's moving. This one's interesting again because you think like everyone's just like beggars can't be choosers market. That's not necessarily the case. The beach is a little bit of an oddball in that respect. So what I'm seeing here is like you can see here is that what this is saying at 300 to 400K, that if the gray bar is higher than the blue bar, that's saying that in 2020, the buyers achieved a higher discount off of list price than they did the previous year. So we're seeing in the lower bucket, which is that really fast moving condo market, we're seeing they played way more in square footage, but they got a discount. So the sellers were trying to get more money, and so the buyers got a bigger discount, but they still made more money than they did the previous year. So interesting. 400 to 600 buyers were able to get less of a discount than the previous year. 600 to 800, another bigger discounts on price point than the previous year. And then you see it kind of flip back in 800 to a million to 2 million. Again, it kind of flips back, and then 2 million plus. People got less of a discount. So based on especially the buckets where the price per square foot wasn't grossly higher, what you're seeing is sellers just trying to charge more. Now, there's some comparable housing and appraisal type of values that are going to say that year over year this stuff's worth more. But a lot of what I'm seeing is, again, this is like why why buyers aren't overpaying is people are just going crazy with like perceived value, listing things super high, realtors taking listings way higher than they should to get the listing, and then you're seeing these just like drop, and then it ends up settling where people maybe even pay less per square foot than the previous year because things aren't magically all of a sudden worth the $1 trillion. But you're seeing that people were definitely trying to get more money across most buckets than the previous year, even though they didn't necessarily get it. So I like the chart for that respect, so really interesting. Kind of a simple one, but kind of interesting in comparison to the last chart. So let's hop to our last one, which is another one of my favorites, which is months on inventory year over year. Okay, our final metric for this video on Siesta Key, Florida is months of inventory year over year. So quickly, this is basically just if nothing else was added to the market in the final month of the year, how many months would it take to sell off the current inventory on the market? So it gives you an indication of a buyer or seller market based on obviously a lot more months to sell in the market. It's a buyer market because there's more supply than demand, and vice versa for less months on the market. So we've been seeing this pretty much across the board, is that just the resale inventory is extremely tough, and that's been doing a lot of things to the market. So every bucket is pretty much is down on months of inventory. The total inventory across the board has been lower. So you got 1 month, you got 4 months here, 3 months here, 7 to 2, 7 to 2, 11 to 3. You know, the 2 million plus is interesting, 23 to 8. So what generally it's doing here is it's saying that there's less resale market at any given time, right? So then it's a feeding frenzy, it's all this kind of stuff. But it does a couple things because there's enough inventory in the market, obviously. Enough has been pushed into the market where the total volume of sales is the minimum bucket volume of sales is up more than 12%. So obviously enough has been listed to make it where every bucket can have sold more inventory than the previous year. So it's not a shortage of like enough to buy. But what this chart basically, in my opinion, is doing is what it's saying is, one, a lot less people I think are listing that could have, because a lot of these people, like in these buckets and stuff, it's not their primary residence, they're not desperate. COVID and all this kind of stuff they feel like less people are going to be available to travel and all that kind of stuff, especially internationally. So they're not going to list it all, right? Where they might have been sitting on the market. A lot of these properties might take 3 years to sell that are really expensive. And these people just physically aren't motivated or can't get here physically. It's not the top of their mind. So you're going to have less listed because of that. And then generally you're just going to have things that move a lot quicker. And those two things combined is making it where there's enough for us to increase in sales every month, but there's also there's not enough to make it where buyers have a gross advantage. And that's kind of been common across everywhere. The beach is showing these way more drastic. I mean, this is really interesting. You had 23 months at 2 million plus, which obviously is a lot, and then 8 here, that's relatively low, and in some markets I've seen like 2 or 3 in the luxury buckets. So anyway, so that's kind of what that's doing. So it's just another little tidbit to the supply and demand relationship here. That's going to end our metric conversation. I hope you stick around for the last segment, which is going to be, we're going to look at 5 real listings that sold across these buckets that would give you a good example of if you spent the money there, what you would get. Okay, in the last part of this video, I want to show you 5 real properties that sold in 2020 to give you kind of a visual perspective of what that money and those metrics and everything actually mean. And we're going to go kind of least expensive to most expensive, hopping across several buckets. So the first one is a condominium that sold along Midnight Pass. And I'm going to show you location first, and then we'll talk a little bit about the dynamics. So this one, you kind of got that explanation of the key. So this one kind of sits in that Crescent Beach area. So main beach here, you're here by the South Beach, and it's off of Midnight Pass Road. And I'm going to flick through pictures while I kind of talk about some stuff here. So this one is in that 300 to 400K. They priced it at $393, and they got $395 for it on the first day. So it's in Siesta Royale, and it's your prototypical rental. So it's a one bedroom, one bath. It allows 1 to 7 day minimum rental periods, which is cool because a lot are 30-day minimums. This one has average monthly fees of $550, which is kind of what I was alluding to about condominiums. Yeah, you kind of get an idea here. So kind of like definitely prototypical beach rental, and it sits right in that middle area with access to both of the bridges and both of the villages and both of the beaches. So it'll give you a good idea of like rental dynamics here. So you can kind of see the beach here. So that would be your pretty sweet, I think, ROI on a rental for this. All right, so number 2 is going to be in the 400 to 600K bucket right at the top. So let me show you where this one's located, and this one's right off of Midnight Pass as well. So it's going to be in that same little spot. So this is where, in the same area, what 600K would do versus 400K. And I'll flick through here. So this is one in Excelsior, beach to bay, and it's because it's in between the beach and the bay. This is a condominium. It's a 2-bedroom, 2-bath. You can kind of see the renovation here. It's lovely. It was built in 1981, but you can kind of see they did the luxury vinyl. It's got a view, a little bit more open. This one sold at one day on market again, so very quick. They had it listed for $585, and they got $585 exactly. And the monthly fees on this one are almost $700 a month. So there's a trade-off on purchase price to, this is a really nice kitchen. I don't think the picture does it justice, but trade-off to monthly fees and purchase price for sure. But you can kind of see it's right in the same area. So this is 600 versus 400, and you kind of see if that would be worth it, if the rental dynamics would be there. And this one has a 2-week minimum rental versus the other one where you can rent as low as 1 day at a time. So this would be a tougher Airbnb type of rental. Get the idea here. It's got a community pool very close to the beach. All right. Number 3. So number 3 is in Sarah Sands, and it's in our 600 to 800K bucket. And I'll show you where that's located. It's off of Sandy Beach Road. So this is going to be in that pocket above the North Beach where you're going to see kind of get a little bit more into that single family type of property, nice condominiums, but a really solid spot, I think. I like the location a lot. So this one is, so again, in Sarah Sands, here's an aerial view of it. So this one's a 2-bedroom, 2-bath. It's got a private pool. It was listed at $769,000 and they got $755,000. So this one got a little discount. It was sold in May of last year. So again, a single family, but this would be like real affordable single family. But you can kind of see getting up in that price point where a single family is even an option. 1 month minimum rental on these units. And you have no average monthly fees here because it's a renovated house that was built in 1967. So inheriting the age on a new renovation has its perks as far as restrictions. Kind of get an idea here. Not too crazy, kind of your normal flip. But it took 4 days to sell this. I'm trying to get to the pool. Yep, there you go. So pretty nice pool area. I mean, pretty solid piece of property, I think. It's on 1/3 of an acre on the water. So interesting for the price point. Got some yard. Yeah, I thought that was pretty attractive for the price point. All right, 2 more here. All right, so second to last, we have a single family in Siesta Isles. I'll show you where that's located. Again, north of the beach, but you can see how close you are to the main beach here with this size house. So interesting. All right, let's talk a little bit about the detail. All right, so this is a single family. It's a 3-bedroom, 2.5 bath in Siesta Isles with a private pool. You have 1 month minimum rentals on these. You can kind of see the little canal there. Took 2 days to sell this. And it was listed at $1.4 million, and it sold at $1.5 million. So someone had to win this at $100K more. So you kind of see what I was getting at with that $1 to $2 million bucket here. But you can kind of see the location of this to the beach, and see this, what kind of house you can get for $1.5 million with this kind of kitchen remodel and a private pool. Just taking $1.5 million and dropping it in California or New York, probably in an apartment. So it's interesting. I think it's a pretty interesting value proposition, and right on the water there. So this is kind of that, I guess not your average, yeah, I mean, this would be your average range actually for 2020, average range single family house right here. So I wanted to tell you, give you a little context there. Okay, our last one is really interesting, kind of nice visually. So the last one is Sanderling Club. This is the most expensive property that was sold, at least through the MLS, the most expensive property that was sold in Siesta Key in 2020. And this actually sits below the Stickney Point Bridge, right here. So this one has a lot of stuff going on. So this was, pull up the pictures here. Okay, so you can kind of see here, pretty awesome. This was sold at $10.5 million, and they listed at $11.9 million. You have a 6-bedroom, I'll go back so you can kind of see that, but there'll be more pictures. 6-bedroom, 6.5 bathrooms, average monthly fees of $800 for the Sanderling Club. You have, it was built in 2010 with a renovation. It's 9,100 square feet under central air. So this one is on almost 4 acres, which is incredible for Siesta Key. And it's got 528 feet of direct Gulf front. So yeah, just intangibles all the way around. And this is more just a visual representation, but this is, again, the most expensive property that sold in MLS in 2020. And I mean, 4 acres, just absolutely incredible, right? Tons of options there. Privacy, you can parcel it out. But yeah, so just a nice way to end the video. Okay, so I'm gonna move to the conclusion real quick. Thanks for sticking with me, and we'll wrap it up. All right, guys, that wraps up this week's episode of Market Monday on Siesta Key, Florida. If you have an area you'd like me to take a look at, please drop in the comments below. I'm going to drop a playlist here of the past Market Mondays in different areas. You can check that out. I'll also drop some helpful resources here. Please subscribe and like. Please check out my description box below. I have a ton of helpful resources in there. Thank you very much for sticking with me. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.